There are stories that connect us to ourselves and to each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. Now, exclusively on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, your hosts, AJ and Natalie.
Hello, Miss Natalie.
Hello, AJ.
And hello, Wanderers. Welcome, welcome. It's Wednesday night, our favorite night of the week. We're so happy to be here with you once again. As you all start piling in, get all cozy like we are. We are in our homes this evening.
Yes, it's definitely cozy. Different
It's cozy.
Studio.
Yep, different vibes in the studio. I'm hanging out in my living room. I decided no office for me today. I don't want to be in a big box.
Aw, me, I'm in my, I guess it's kind of like my dining room. It's kind of an open room with my kitchen and my plant behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And you have a squeaky little voice tonight.
I know it's been this virus thing, and I have used just about everything. And I went to the chiropractor today, and he's like, "It's just a virus." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine."
Just a virus, so you'll heal quickly.
Yes, I'm. Doesn't put me down. I'm like, I'm not been flat in my bed, but I just get frustrated. Like, I talk for a living, and it's just tough when that gets affected. But we'll just put up with my voice, and I get to do the show, and I feel pretty good. So
I'm so happy you're here. Yay!
Oh yes, I can't imagine doing any other way. I look forward to these Wednesday nights and our chat and guest and everything.
Me also. It is definitely one of my favorite things. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you. How's your week been? I haven't seen you for a few days.
Pass?
She's like, okay, let's.
No one wants to hear about that.
You're like, well, life is happening.
It's really interesting. I have so many highs and so many lows. Like I go up and down, up and down. Mostly the downs are all because of health reasons. But I went a little dark the last week. I don't know, I have a lot going on in my life, and a lot of feels are coming up regarding situations in my life, and they're not just like feels that are going to pass through. I've got to come up with some resolutions with these feelings in regards to these feelings, and so it's really just made me very introspective the first couple of days of this process, and then the stress is like no friend of MS, right? And so it hit me physically, and I had just like a grand old time the last several days, and I didn't even leave the house for almost 3 days. And my partner's like, "We're getting you out of the house tonight. You need to get out of the house." And I'm like, okay. And I did. And it changed everything for me. Like I was able to move through some of that energy and shift some of my thinking. And today's a new day. And here we go again. My weeks, I feel like, start on Wednesdays. Like this is my Monday, because I'm busy, really busy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then Monday, Tuesdays are my weekends. So kind of. Mondays are definitely my weekend. Tuesday, we'll see. Depends on the week.
Depends on the week.
So there's my long answer. You're welcome.
Oh, yes. I had family time because I had family in town. Funerals are often family reunions, and lots of like wandering back memory lane when you're like, just, it was kind of like that.
Yeah, it can be.
lovely because I really enjoy. I mean, I do enjoy my family. I don't see them very often, and I think that's a benefit living geographically separated from your family.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a fun time, and then they go back to where they live, which is far away. So it's kind of like these infrequent things.
Yeah. And then when you get all those people together, all that energy and
There's so many humans in my family. So my cousin said that my mom had reported 36 people were coming from my family, coming up from Arizona, and my sister and her husband and kids came from Washington. So that is a lot of humans.
there's so many humans.
It's just,
Like, let's hang out. I have a large family also. When we all get together, there's a lot going on.
yeah, it's contrast from my very small life,
Yeah.
which maybe is a couple of people, but yeah, it was
You,
lovely. I got visit with my mom and my lovely sister Rachel. We had good long talks, and I mhm, see cousins I hadn't seen for a long time.
good.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you had those opportunities. Unfortunately, in those situations, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes we don't talk to or see our family in so long, and then all
So
of a
nice.
sudden, we're brought
Yeah,
together through loss. But there's good things that come from that also.
it is true. And I had a lovely time. So other than picking up a bug, I mean,
Yeah.
I was just like, really? Okay, well, let's just treat myself. And I guess that's just what happens when you get around large groups of people, or at least sometimes for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm sure it's like that for a lot of people.
Right.
Um, this week, there's been several people who have come into the shop who have all been like, what's up with July? Like, it's so wonky energetically. Have you been feeling that yourself?
I have, like, I think with the weather, and I've had reports from different people too.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, I don't know. I keep saying, I think, we, for because in the genre that we work in, there's always been this, we're going through consciousness shift and we're moving to the fifth dimension. And I think the fine print of a lot of that is it's a bumpy ride.
Amen, sister.
So let's hope that we did all our education before so we have our coping skills to move through it when it's like that. But I have definitely felt like that. Um, I think that, well, personally, it hasn't necessarily, it's not as bumpy. I don't feel like my ride is quite as bumpy as it is for others,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice, but it's bumpy enough for me. Yeah. So then
I
you're like,
mean,
okay,
you're consistently doing the work, as we call it. And I think it's less bumpy because of that, but it doesn't make it like go away. Doesn't mean there's nothing happening to you or for you. It's definitely there. And I think that you're more diligent in doing work than I am because this show will be good for me tonight because we're going to talk about shadow work. And I know some of that behavior is like avoiding those triggers so you don't have to like work through them. I'm good at that sometimes. They always have a funny way of rearing their ugly faces.
it's just the way that it, right.
But I adore that about you because you are consistently aware. You're just good at that. And I'm
But
just like, oh, I see it coming. I see it coming. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm not here. I don't want to work on you right now.
I don't know. I've had some. I'm looking forward to the show too to get some insight with shadow work because I recently did some energy work with someone that I work with from time to time, and that was kind of some dark stuff that came up, and the blending of all my teachings. Have you done this? I've talked about it on the show before. This class called Get Real, which is a channeling class, and so often the things that come from the channel just just radiate. And today I was thinking the universe will show you in a way you can understand.
Mm-hmm.
So with this energy work and the story that came up that was told, I don't want to overthink it because it was like this really dark story. And I'm like, okay, the universe will show me in a way I can understand because I requested to have some energy moved. I wanted to move past some blocks. So the story is a story.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened to be like particular past life stuff. And I'm like, look, I'm in this life now. I'm moving through some energy. A story is a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reminding myself today of that says, look, the universe will show me in a way that I can understand. If that the story was a way to show me how to move, and underlying all of that was a lesson in forgiveness, even if it's forgiving myself for this story of the way I was in a previous life, then I'm just going to move with forgiveness and not worry so much about whatever my actions were in a previous life. What can I do about that?
Right.
I can karmically move it to the upper room or radiate higher with that energy. And so that's been like my moving through some stuff going, whoa, okay.
That's
We're gonna love
big.
myself.
That's big. I love that though. Like knowledge is power, right? And just even having validation that you have some kind of energy or feeling towards something and knowing that it's seen and felt by someone else who can also help you shift through that space.
Right. And then knowledge is power, but you know what's even more powerful is love. And so coming from the place of love, love yourself through it. Even if it's for you, loving yourself through what you're going through. And sometimes that is definitely like a conscious decision that says, I'm going to choose love in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
As much love as I can muster. And sometimes that isn't a lot, but we want to muster love. And so that's a tricky thing I find, because bringing love into dark situations sometimes is pretty big deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're like, I'm going to choose love. What does that look like?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I resonate with that very much. Especially the last couple of days, I could feel like my psyche was going dark. Not necessarily my thoughts, but I could tell that like all of the things that were consuming my thoughts were just like seeping into me. And I was doing everything I could not to go there, because I'm not a depressive person by nature anyway. I don't get depressed. There have been moments where I have felt low, and I'm sure people would consider me depressed, but I've never really taken on that terminology and have owned it in any way, because that's what works for me. And this time I was just like, whoa, girl, like I had to call a friend, like, help me out. I'm going dark.
Oh, and I'm so proud of you for doing that. There's times where we need to do that. I do feel like there's, a darkness afoot. I'm just going to put it that way.
No, and that's where I was headed. Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
That these are super intense times, and there's times where I feel like you can just have, if you have any sort of opening, then that the darkness can kind of creep in those chinks in our armor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by darkness afoot. I've had some people that just, you have to pay attention to whether or not you be like, what's that saying that they say, not today, Satan?
Not today, Satan.
Where you get familiar with that, where even if that should be like, not today, Satan. I'm not gonna give in to that darkness completely.
But that's what I was saying in the beginning was July. And I'm just using July as a reference of time and space, right? It's just the here and now has been very heavy. Like almost everyone that has, oops, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Whooey. I should not mess around with anything at this table right now. It's a miracle I even got it set up, okay? But
Yeah, being a home is a whole different experience.
yeah, let's not touch anything. Anyway, so many people are coming in and expressing their experiences with emotions, with life in general. And a lot of them are saying the same things. Like things are just extra challenging. Things are extra heavy.
Mhm.
Things feel off. People have been even saying like they feel dark. They feel darkness. And having that awareness when people start coming into our space and start saying like there's a pattern of experiences that are relatively close, that's when I start armoring up. Like, oh, this isn't gonna get me, but this time it just, I mean, I'm still in a space of sorts, but I'm digging my way
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's all we can do is just remind ourselves like the opposite of dark is light, and to do things that bring light into our life, like feel love, to express love, to show love, to be love, the highest vibration. When you talked about forgiveness, and in all, to those who aren't familiar with those ways, like it does sound totally woo woo and like, okay, love, whatever, that's just crazy. But
Right.
when you have your first experience of knowing that that is your biggest superpower, then you'll have more of those experiences that you can get yourself out of when you're in those darker places.
Right. So I do want to talk about some practical, like it does not have to be really complex.
Mm-hmm.
You can like really simplify love, and you can eat a food that you love. You really can. And you can
Yeah.
experience a little moment of pleasure and love, and then it grows from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that I thought about was it's as simple as lighting a candle. It's
Yeah.
really bring light, and it can be that literal sometimes where you're like, "Okay, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna light this candle." Okay, look at the flame. It works
Yeah,
like
it
that.
really is that simple.
We will like, light incense or something like that, because that's the flame to the smoke to the things, and it can be as simple as that. Or
Mm-hmm.
by the way, I love your new your Guardian spray. I've been like spraying myself like
Yeah, the sacredraven.com if you guys want the Guardian spray. It's not on there yet. I'm slacking. I'm selling it in a couple of shops, but I don't have it on my website. I really need to get it up on there, and I'm hoping to get that accomplished
Well, if I
with
talk about it, it wouldn't hurt to have some
in the week.
request for it going. It's like,
It's a protection spray,
mhm.
energetic protection, and I'm so glad that you've been using it. That makes me
Oh my
happy.
gosh, I just love, and it smells good, and it's like simple. Okay, I'm just spraying myself
Good vibes, good vibes.
because I had a friend going through his darkness, and I just am like, okay, look, I'm just going to spray myself, clear that energy. I wasn't feeling great anyway, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, hold my line.
Well, I'm so grateful that you are using it and you are enjoying it. We have some people piling into the chat room. I just want to say hello, Wanderers. Looks like a lot of our regular loves. I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. It's nice to see you there. And yeah, today is July 12th. We have a birthday. Not you or I. One of
Whose
our
birthday?
beautiful wanderers and a friend, Maria. Happy birthday.
Woo!
I have to give you a shout out. I know you don't like the attention, but
Happy birthday, Maria.
I'm just I remembered it was her birthday and I was going to say something, and then
Someone else did?
yeah, they're already talking about it. Good. She deserves all the love and attention. She's such a good person. And Yeah, she hosts Survivor Circle with Charles on Tuesday night on YouTube. Guys should go check them out. I missed it last night. I joined 2 hours later because I keep missing the time because they're a couple hours ahead.
Oh, are they on Eastern time?
Well, yeah. Well, Central, I can't remember. See, this is where I get mixed up. They are at 4:30 Mountain Time. I know that
Oh.
because I keep thinking it's 6:30, but it's not. I messed that up. So, yay! So happy birthday to Maria. So going back to, we had this guest tonight scheduled some time ago. I don't
Like 3
remember.
months or something? It was a
A
little bit
couple
ago.
of months ago. And for unforeseen reasons, we had to reschedule. And I'm so glad she was able to come back to us. What we ended up doing that night is talking about shadow work, like our experiences of owning and running a spiritual healing center. Together, we've been able to work with a lot of people in different ways with different modalities, and we're familiar. We were familiar enough. We definitely aren't at the level Connie is, but we were
Right.
familiar enough to have a show that we were able to just carry on it and talk about those things. And so that was a really good show. I'm excited tonight for it to get real with us, right? We're going to learn so much tonight. I just know it. Our guest has years and years and years and years of shadow work and being on your spiritual path and working with your soul and meditation, like all kinds of good stuff that we love to talk about and love to learn from different teachers. And tonight it will be her, and we'll introduce her here after the break. But what are you most excited about?
I really do enjoy listening to people that have steeped in their masters of their craft.
Mm-hmm.
And so I enjoy like learning new things and different perspectives on it. So, and shadow work is, that I've heard it said to not do shadow work by yourself. And there's lots of different concepts. Words are funny things. They mean a lot of things to different things to different people and how you've heard it. So getting some specifics on that.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to that, like hearing how different methods of dealing with shadow work. I feel like I can often meet people. I call myself a human wilderness guide because I find that I meet people in their wilderness, and in the grief journey, it's definitely full of lots and lots of shadows, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things come up after loss, especially trauma.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's something I'll be curious to learn is does shadow things spin off of trauma, or what causes the different shadows in our life, or how do we go about looking into the shadows? Do we always have to do it? Can we just, all those different questions are already popping up.
Can we bypass? Can we say pass?
Is it okay if we just
Next
opt
card.
out?
No, I mean, it even comes down to a simple little thing we were told as a child, like, don't do that, whatever that was.
Yep.
It really, it could be something so, what we would see now as an adult, so trivial, and maybe we've even done to people around us or our children, not knowing
Oh, right.
the psychological damage that it can actually do.
Right. I was actually contemplating that a little bit today. How often in life, us as humans, the interactions with each other can cause wounds or difficulty for someone else without any consciousness on another person's part, that they are not doing it consciously in any way. And the way that we're all so different, and those differences often cause difficulty between people. just the mere differences of the way people operate.
Right.
And misunderstandings about that, and wanting people to operate the way that we would understand, but they operate this other way. Those things can cause wounds between each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even like we talk about human design a lot on the show because
We love it.
we love it. Natalie has made us slightly obsessed. And and even like going down to that, like knowing what your child's design is and how important that would be in this situation to raise them differently, where they weren't having those experiences when they got older. They were having less moments of having to look at that shadow.
Right. That conditioning getting in less, or understanding the way that they're designed to operate and being able to do it that way just naturally. I'm like, oh, that would be cool to have little humans running around like that.
It would be so great. It would be so great in a perfect world. But here we are.
We may
We
be
have
going
work to
towards
do.
that. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Not now, but hopefully in the future. Hopefully I'm alive when that's happening. That would
Well,
be
I have a feeling you're going to help your little guy out.
my little grandbaby.
Yes.
Heck yes. All right, y'all. We're going to take our first break of the night. And when we come back, we are going to be bringing on our guest for the evening who will be joining us for the remainder of the show. So excited. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a feel the difference money back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Soul Wanderings, heard here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Why are you laughing?
I just, you know what? It's just so lovely being able to do this and, you know,
Yes, it's so good.
lucky me.
I love being here too. Let's not waste any time. Let's bring our guest on right away. Connie Zweig, Ph.D., a retired psychotherapist and former executive editor at Jeremy P. Tarcher Publishing, is co-author of Meeting the Shadow and Romancing the Shadow, and author of the bestseller The Inner Work of Age, Shifting from Role to Soul, and a novel, A Moth to the Flame, The Life of the Sufi Poet Rumi. She has been practicing and teaching meditation for more than 50 years. And tonight we are going to learn more about her newest release, which I'll let her share with us, and more about who she is and what she does in the world. Let's welcome Connie to the show.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, Connie. Welcome. We're so delighted to have you here.
Hi.
I love the orange.
That's actually a trundle bed for the grandkids.
Oh, we love grandkids.
Yeah.
It's so good. Well, welcome. We are glad that you were able to make a connection with us this evening, and we can't wait to learn all about what you get to share with us tonight. What we like to do on Soul Wanderings is get to know you on a personal level before we dive down deep into your work. So going back as far as you feel comfortable, like, who are you, Connie, and how did you get to be where you are today? What was the driving force to bring you into this time and space?
Oh my God.
No pressure.
That's pretty general. Let's see. I'm going to just focus on career to respond to that, okay?
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. So I began meditation at a very young age, at 19, and spent about a decade practicing and teaching meditation in my 20s. And then had some difficult experiences with that teacher and community and left. And when I left, the separation was really painful. And I always remembered that for people who are leaving organized religions or mystical communities, sanghas or satsangs or zendos, that separation from the teacher and the community means a lot of loss and disillusionment. And that experience stayed with me and shaped me. And it also led me to my careers, because when I lost the community, I read the book, The Aquarian Conspiracy. This is 1981. I don't know if you don't remember that.
It sounds fascinating, though.
But I was so blown away that I picked up the phone and called the author of the book. And in this amazing synchronicity, she said, "Come in. I just lost my editor, and you're the first phone call, and I'm meant to be your writing mentor." So we met. We had this beautiful connection. And that launched me on a journalism career that I had not planned or imagined at all. But I saw that this kind of loss and what I would now call initiation into the shadow opened another door. And so I worked in journalism with newspapers and magazines. And then I worked in publishing, book publishing, for about 10 years. And during that time, I was kind of falling in love with the work of Carl Jung and depth psychology. I was in my 40s and decided to go back to graduate school and get my doctorate. And so I ended up doing clinical work for 30 years and developing this method of shadow work that you were mentioning earlier, for people to work with their unconscious process. Why would we want to do that? We can get into that. But basically, whatever you're not aware of in your shadow will erupt and sabotage your conscious intentions. So if you struggle with an addiction or a depression or a repeating fight with your partner, it's all about the shadow. So that led to the first book, Meeting the Shadow, and then Romancing the Shadow, which really developed the method that I've been teaching all these years. And then The Inner Work of Age, which extends shadow work into midlife and beyond. And then the new book, Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path, which extends this work into the religious and spiritual arenas. So that's kind of a big picture of where life has led me. I now have 74 years of life experience. And when I look at that story, I just feel immensely grateful and deeply satisfied. And, it's been a very meaningful life.
That is just lovely. How have you found that? So I would imagine that you've done a lot of the shadow work yourself and clearing it out. And how would you say that's really benefited you?
Well, it's been many decades now of kind of exploring my unconscious motivations, why I do the things I do, the way that I do them, say the things that I say, struggle with my struggles, relate to other people. So let me just give you one example. I would say that when I was very young, in my 20s, 30s, my friends would point out that I was often judgmental. And as I began to do shadow work and imagine this character, the judge, and then I would work with, when the judge came up, I would begin to work with it. What is really going on? What is behind this judgmentalness? What am I unconsciously experiencing? And how is that affecting other people? And is that how I want to continue to relate to people? So for a number of years, I explored this with my method, which I can share with you if you want, and really discovered that there's gold in the dark side, as Carl Jung put it. There are valid needs in these shadow characters that were buried in the unconscious when we were young. And these needs are hidden there. And if we can learn how to meet them more directly, then they won't sabotage us indirectly. So there's great promise in doing this kind of inner work. Some people do it with dreams because, we meet the shadow every night in our dreams. Our dreams are all parts of us. Nobody else is in our dreams, but parts of our own psyche. And so if there's a part of us that we don't like, that seems really opposite who we think we are, we're meeting a shadow in the dream. Some people do this with creativity, in which they find ways to express forbidden emotions. Some people do this as couples, where they can kind of mirror each other and really give honest feedback and work with what comes up. So, there are ways of working with the shadow that are different from my method. And as you said earlier, there are other people who've developed their methods, like Ken Wilber has his own sort of quickie shadow work method. So I didn't plan for it to turn into a career. I never, had the intention of heading here, but this is how it unfolded.
Isn't it neat how we think our life is going to look one way and it turns out being something completely different? Before we carry on, I just want to make sure everyone's aware of what we're talking about. We've talked about the shadow and shadow work in the past, but for any new listeners, will you give us a quick description of what you're referring to when you refer to the shadow?
So when we're small, and and where our parents are sort of socializing us, mostly unknowingly, they're praising and rewarding certain feelings and certain behaviors and giving love and approval for them. And then they're punishing or dismissing or forbidding others. So whatever is forbidden moves into the unconscious. And the unconscious is the part of us, of the body mind, that's not just a little corner of the mind, but it's actually embedded in the whole body and brain and nervous system. So there's unconscious material everywhere inside of us, as well as in the subtle bodies, in the chakras. So if you grew up in a family that forbid you to be angry, your anger is going to get buried in the shadow, and your persona will develop polite, kind, not showing the anger. If sorrow or sadness is forbidden or devalued, then that's going to get repressed. And so whatever is not expressed gets repressed. And that's kind of the nature of how we're made, how we're built. And as we go through the lifespan, we continue to form new shadow material. So let's say, we get into a relationship where our sexuality, our sexual preferences are not accepted. And so that gets pushed into the shadow. There's also messaging about our talents, our gifts. So let's say we got the message that, you're really a good painter and drawing, but that's not valuable. We only care about academic achievement in our family. You have to get all A's and that's all that matters. So that artistic part of you gets buried in the shadow. And then what happens? At certain life transitions like adolescence and midlife and late life, shadow material starts to move forward. And it may erupt uncomfortably, like people have a midlife crisis. In my clinical practice, people would blow up their lives. They'd leave the marriage, they'd leave the kids, they'd leave the job, because what was happening was the unlived life was coming forward, and it was so compelling that nothing else mattered. So as we move through the lifespan, different qualities of the shadow move forward and kind of call to us. In later life, which is what the inner work of age is about, midlife and beyond, I discovered that there's a shadow part of most people that I call the inner ageist. It's the part of us that has internalized ageism and feels shame about our appearance or slowing down or feeling weak or needing to be dependent. And so what does that mean? It means that we internalized ageism from the ageist culture in which we live, and we're now giving that message to ourselves. And that's a shadow character that we can work with so that we can actually have a different kind of self-acceptance as we age, and thriving and choice as we age. So each stage of life has different shadow issues. And I would say that there's a distinction between shadow content, so anything can be buried in the shadow, and a shadow character, which is about my method, how I've taught people to take a particular aspect of the shadow content and personify it so that it becomes a figure in your awareness that you can have a more conscious relationship with. So what was unconscious becomes conscious, and you can dialogue with it and find out about it and find those hidden needs in that shadow character.
How interesting. We refer to that. It wouldn't be the same though, Natalie. We refer to the non-self as our shadow, I guess you would say.
Well, so in the language that we're using, it's actually the design side is the unconscious. So it's the aspects of ourselves that are just not conscious. So some of it's the non-self, but some of it's just our design.
Right. But it has been interesting in learning that and practicing what we've been doing, giving my non-self a name. So it was how Connie said, it's something more tangible that I can actually engage with.
Right. Personify it. So then, yeah, I love how that is. And isn't there are also frameworks where they use the language archetypes?
Yeah, so that was Jung discovered that there are these universal blueprints or patterns in life that he called archetypes. And each shadow character is kind of has as its core a particular archetype. So if you have a critical mother shadow character, we call it a mother complex or a mother archetype in depth psychology. So my book, Romancing the Shadow, is all about the shadow and the archetypes in relationships, how they show up in our relationships, and how to work with them.
So would you consider the shadow or shadow work being more psychological or spiritual in nature?
Well, for me, it's both. So it's obviously psychological because it's rooted in depth psychology and the way in which we work with unconscious process. But for me, we need to do a centering practice, whether it's a meditation or a prayer or some kind of a contemplative practice, to be centered enough to actually meet the shadow, because the shadows can be overwhelming, painful, traumatic even. If you're looking at, let's say, an incident of abuse and how that created a shadow character in you, like the victim or the abandoned child, you need a way of centering yourself in order to do that deep work. So for me, the spiritual and the psychological have always been connected. In the new book, Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path, that's all about how we meet the shadow in our spiritual relationships. Why are we drawn to charismatic teachers? And why do so many of them abuse their followers verbally, financially, and sexually? And so I'm applying psychology to understand the spiritual arena. Why do we bond with these teachers? What are we looking for in these communities? Why is it difficult to separate from them? How do we know when it's time to separate from them? Why do we deny the red flags? And so on. And so for me, there's, in a way, psychology leads to spirituality. It's just a natural extension of it.
That makes so much sense. That's really deep. That's deep work when you, especially if you get victimized or you have an abusive sort of relationship with a spiritual teacher. That's really powerful. And there's some spiritual teachings saying the guru is going to do that until you get it. And then that's part of the spiritual growth itself, is understanding that nobody is really your own guru.
So that's what I call spiritual rationalization.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path, there are lots and lots of stories of current scandals and allegations of teachers being abusive and guidance for how people can deal with this situation, because it's the most sacred relationship of a lifetime. Some people believe that person is their connection to the divine or to salvation or to enlightenment. And if that's how they see it, they're going to be very attached and then obedient, and possibly give up their critical thinking and their doubts and their agency. And so part of what I call spiritual shadow work is learning how to identify when we're doing that and learning how to reclaim a lot of what we give away to the clergy person or the guru, the rabbi or the roshi, how to reclaim that for ourselves. It doesn't mean we stop seeking or doing practices, but it means that we can have a different relationship to our spiritual lives when we have psychological insight about it.
Oh, I can appreciate that.
Connie, we had a question in the chat room. It's more of a psychic question, which isn't funny. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to reword how. I'll just give you the question. You can answer it in a way that would make sense for them to be able to do the work. How does that feel?
Sure.
The question is, will I heal my relation between me and my mother, or will it be forever like now? Will it be like it is now? So I'm assuming he wants to know how he can heal that relationship with his mother in terms of what you're sharing with us.
Yeah, I can't predict,
exactly
a stranger's relationship with his mother, how that's going to unfold. There are two ways to deal with our relationships with our parents, right? One is internal. We go to therapy, we examine ourselves, and the other is interpersonal. We go to our mother and we communicate and see if we can get anywhere. But you have to have really good communication skills to be able to do that with someone who's hurt you or who you've hurt, right? You have to do no blame. You have to stay in I statements, be accountable for yourself, be willing to apologize and take responsibility. There's so many things that you need to set up to do this interpersonally. So my suggestion to people is really to do the inner work first. And that means different things to different people. For some people that might mean journaling. For some people it might mean finding the right therapist. For some people it might mean a recovery program or a support group of some kind, or reading. Reading Romancing the Shadow or other books about how the unconscious operates in relationships. So, I don't know this person's story or what their relationship is about. I can't predict anything. But what I would advise is really finding support and trying to do the work.
Mm-hmm. And also, when it comes to certain situations, for example, you're wanting to heal that relationship and do the work, but the other person is not, you still can do the work and heal everything that you're able to heal in that experience.
Yeah. This is very common. The other person doesn't want to engage. It could be a spouse or a child, as well as a parent or a friend, right? Mm-hmm. So, one of the kind of tricks I used to have people do when I was in practice is write a letter to that person and keep writing letters until you feel a shift inside of yourself, that you've actually said everything you need to say. And you may or may not mail those letters, depending on the relationship. Some people never mail them. But what's happening internally is that the psyche is experiencing that you're communicating. You're imagining, you're seeing that person in your mind's eye, you're talking to them on the paper. And so you wait until there's some kind of a shift, like your mood lifts, or you see more clearly, or you get an idea about how you could approach them. And so you begin to try to do that on your own without the other person.
That's beautiful. What a great idea. I think of all of the times that I've journaled, not with the intention of writing a letter to someone else, but just to get that energy out of my body.
Yes.
Right. Just so I'm not playing those experiences or thought processes on repeat, but actually like shifting that energy away from me.
That's right. And meditation is really good for that too, because you begin to learn how the mind works. And you get some space from your thoughts and you learn how to watch them come and go and come and go. And so if you discover that you're telling yourself the same thing over and over again, that's one of those loops that you're talking about. What do you want to do with that? How do you want to work with that and get free of it?
Right. There's so many ways, but those are some great tools that you shared with us. Very good. Thank you. We're going to take our top of the hour break here about a minute early. When we get back, we will continue our wandering with Connie. It's just a good place to stop. And we'll be right back, you guys.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Uh-oh, we aren't hearing.
Hi, everyone. I didn't hit the mute. I was talking to my puppy. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings. We're heard here on kgradb.com. We invite you all to go and take a look at our site, kgradb.com. It's where you're going to find a spectacular lineup of shows to help brighten your horizons, answer some questions you may have, and build that big, beautiful brain of yours. You can also save on your membership if you decide to join the members only area. If you go over to the shows and hosts, go over to Wednesday and scroll down to Soul Wanderings. There's a few different options there for you to get the best way Best choice you're looking for. 30% off your annual or monthly memberships. And you can even try a few day, well, I think it's a week free trial period. So go take a look. And if you want to learn more about Natalie and myself, visit soulwanderings.com. Tonight we are hanging out with Connie Zweig, and she is the author of many books, all revolving around, well, not all of them, but most of them revolving around the shadow. Her latest work has been released this year, Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path. And in the second hour, we're going to learn more about this book and why she wrote it and all of the goodness it has within it. Are you ready for that, Connie?
I'm ready.
Let's share your book with the world. So first,
all about it.
Yeah, tell us about your newest book.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I had this experience early in my life. And I had met many people who had found teachers, rabbis, roshis, shaman, swamis, and lamas, and had become disillusioned due to some either covert behavior by the teacher that was like shaming or criticizing or controlling, or some really overt behavior like sexual assault or financial abuse. But I couldn't find anything to read about it in the context of the shadow or the unconscious. What was going on in the shadow of these teachers and clergy and leaders when they were acting out? What was going on in the unconscious of the students, the believers, when this was happening? So I wrote this book a number of years ago, and then realized that so much had happened since then that I decided to really expand it and update it. The Me Too movement, in 2017, really woke people up to sexual assault in the military, in the workplace, and in secular settings. But it didn't really go into sacred, spiritual settings. And so I wanted to do that with this updated version of the book. And I don't think like a cult person. It's not about deprogramming them and putting them back in the conventional world. That's not how I think. There's tremendous beauty and value in spiritual transmissions by teachers, spiritual practices, and communities. So I wanted to be able to hold the value and at the same time look at the shadow issues that were coming up, because they're quite epidemic now in our world. And I hadn't seen that done before. And so that's really what I've tried to do here. I've tried to explore the issue of projection, which is how we unconsciously attribute something that we don't want to look at in ourselves to another person, right? That's projection. We do it all the time. We do it with family members and friends and teachers and spiritual leaders and politicians. We do this in celebrities. This is how the mind works. So the shadow wants to expel certain material, both positive and negative, in order to look at it outside of ourselves. And so that's one of the things that happens in these relationships. So what do we project? Well, we might imagine that this is the perfect father that we never had, who will be unconditionally loving and approving and accepting, right? Or we might imagine the perfect mother if it's a female teacher. Or we might imagine that this person is awake, spiritually awake, enlightened, and we are not. And so we feel lesser and we feel like if only we are around this person long enough, get close enough to him or her, that we will be rewarded. And then it gets more intense. If only we obey this person and do what he says, then we will be rewarded, right, with salvation or awakening. And so a lot of this is going on unconsciously. Sometimes people are aware that they're making these kinds of deals, but a lot of people are not. And the childhood need to feel safe from abandonment. So the fantasy is, this person will never abandon me, and I'll always belong. I'll always have a place to belong in this community. So there are a lot of different sources of projection that are going on and that keep us attached, even when things go awry. Let's say we observe that a teacher is cruel to someone. What happens then? We start to feel a tension between what we long for and what we observe, what we wish were true and what's actually true. And people have different ways of managing that tension. Some people go into denial completely. Many people I interviewed said, if that were true, my whole life would be meaningless. I would have wasted my life. So it can't be true. I won't allow it. I won't let myself look at it. You know, he can't be an alcoholic, or she can't be cruel, or he can't be stealing this person's money or raping this person. It can't be happening. And so denial is a big defense that goes along with the projection. And there are all kinds of defenses like that. Natalie, you mentioned rationalization. So we tell ourselves that this is for our own good. You know, this is for ego reduction. And if I reduce my ego enough, then I'll be awake. Or this is for punishment from past lives, and he knows my past lives. And so, you know, I deserve this abuse, right? Or around sexuality, he'll wake up my kundalini. And, you know, if I have sex with him, then, you know, I'll gain what I've been looking for all these years. So there's all kinds of rationalizations and defenses that come up, and there are patterns to them. And that was what I really wanted to see. I wanted to be able to see the psychological patterns across the denominations: Christian, Jewish, unaffiliated, you know, Vedanta, Zen, Tibetan, Buddhism, shamanic. All these groups have the same patterns. And a lot of the abusive behavior really appeared to me like alcoholic families, where the abusive parent is really narcissistic, self-centered. Other people are enabling him or her. The system is held together by secrets. Nobody's allowed to tell, and the secrets are the glue, you know. And everybody finds ways to rationalize the behavior and make it go away like it doesn't exist. And so that's what's going on in some of these communities. And nobody's talking about it. I mean, it's just shocking to me. I was very disturbed in the research phase of doing the book, very upset. And for people who pick up the book, you'll see chapter 5, there's a lot of stories, a lot of anecdotes of these teachers acting out their shadows. There's also good news. People can learn how to do spiritual shadow work and recover from religious betrayal and trauma. There are communities, and I write some of these stories, that have brought in consultants and therapists and really tried to make amends and reorganize the systems that are colluding with the abuse. There are individual teachers who've admitted their wrongs and tried to make amends. So, there are some hopeful things, but there's also an epidemic of this that's very disturbing.
That would be that so deep. I don't even know the words on all of those things because I like I have my own personal life. Not that I had any abuse or anything, but leaving a religion, the religion just fell apart, and then not being able to crawl back in that box again, and then finding a different way. And then I remember when I kind of entered into what I would call the New Age community, and having that idea that people seem to be so much more knowledgeable than me, and then I'm like, oh, they're just people. And this disillusionment that's like, oh, well, okay.
I remember when I first started dipping my toes into spirituality, there were so many gurus. Like, let me show you the way. Let me show you the way.
Yeah.
And I remember just like wanting to dive into everyone's way, but also being overwhelmed by the amount of ego that was in all of the situations, all of these circles, all of these experiences. And for me, it didn't take long to see what was happening because I had gone through trauma a lot of my life. So I recognized the patterns and behavior, but I was actually really surprised that it was happening in these spiritual communities, right? Where we go to seek enlightenment, where we go to feel safe. And where, like, even in our own community, I feel like it's more saturated with people in those spaces than on the helpful, lighter side of things, unfortunately.
Well, wounded people who've suffered trauma are seeking, and that's one of the gifts of our woundedness. It leads us, I write about the holy longing. It leads us to long for transcendence, for connection with something larger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads us to excellent teachers, an ecstatic experience. It's not all bad.
Right.
And it leads us to therapists and healers. And so that is the gift of our woundedness. But a lot of the healers are wounded healers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the teachers suffer their own trauma and unconsciousness. And there's also cultural issues. So a lot of the teachers who came from Asia came from really misogynistic cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they're around all these independent women who are scantily dressed, who have a great self-expression, and a sense of entitlement. And these men are disoriented by this. Some of them, there's a young teacher right now from a Tibetan monastery who has been talking about how much sexual molestation there is in the monasteries in Tibet and Nepal. So they become teachers, they come here, and they have their own traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And, someone like Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, I don't know if you've heard of him, the Shambhala community in Colorado. He was a brilliant teacher, wrote incredibly brilliant books, and he was alcoholic, and he was a sexual abuser, and he was a verbal abuser. And this went on for years, and people denied that he was alcoholic. He died of alcoholism, and they still said he wasn't an alcoholic. And then his disciple was sexually abusive. And then his son took over, and he was sexually abusive. So now it's become intergenerational, and some of it is a sense of entitlement and narcissism, because, if they're born in the East and they're told that they're special, they're the head of a lineage, and they're empowered by their lineage, and they're sitting, with a golden Buddha, there's a sense of entitlement there that kind of builds a narcissistic personality. And there's no psychological work, and there's no moral development. Nobody is teaching the teachers about morality. Some of the traditions have moral precepts. So, for example, a lot of them have moral precepts, but that doesn't mean that the teachers will honor them if their own psychology is so disturbed. So there are a lot of different levels for why this is happening, why people are susceptible to it. What are the sort of unmet needs that we bring to our communities? And what are the unmet needs that the teachers bring to the students? Because the teachers don't have peer support. They're mostly isolated. And they're carrying all this projection. Can you imagine carrying the projection of thousands of people? I mean, as a therapist, I had to carry the projection of one person at a time, right? Mm-hmm. In therapy, we call that transference. But in the spiritual world, I mean, there are teachers in India who are carrying projection for millions of people.
Yeah.
So how does that begin to shape their psychology and their self-image and their sense of limitations? Mm-hmm. Where are their limitations? And there are many scriptures that teach that once you're awake, you can't do anything wrong. You're established in yoga, you perform right action. Or you're enlightened, you're not the doer. And I see this as another rationalization because it tells us that they're not going to be responsible for their actions.
It reminds me of isn't it convenient if you're on the right side?
Yeah.
Then you're on the right. So
God is on your side.
Right.
Yeah. So, this is a very kind of rich area for people to explore. If you have any experience in this or any interest in it, if the seeker in you is alive with holy longing and spiritual yearning for more, right? Because there is more. There are people living genuine awakenings and higher levels of consciousness. I know some of them intimately. This is not a myth. But at the same time, we need to cultivate shadow awareness so that we can recognize the red flags and we can honor ourselves when we're not safe. I had so many women tell me my body knew there was danger, but I ignored it. Right?
Right.
So many. Women do have that innate ability to have intuition, like deep intuition naturally. And we are so good at ignoring it until we know better.
That's right. Her teacher said to her, just ignore the mind. Thoughts are empty. Don't pay attention, And some people take a vow not to criticize the guru. It's bad karma to criticize the guru. So there are these layers of teachings and messaging that, in a way, extend our childhood experience of keeping secrets, right? Our childhood experience of obedience, of not speaking up, of giving up our voice, of giving up our authentic selves, our authenticity. And so then that gets repeated in the place where, just as you said, AJ, the place where we go to feel safe and loved and connect with the sacred.
Exactly. But also, like, the people who, I can't speak for clergy. I never really got into religion too much. But for a spiritual teacher, or, how are they not aware that they're acting out in their shadows? Like, if they're doing the work, if they're living this practice or lifestyle, if you will, how do they not know?
Well, they're rationalizing. I'm special. I'm entitled. I need this. I want this. The devotion becomes like food. And then they become inflated. We call it ego inflation in psychology, with grandiosity. I'm immune to consequences. Nobody will know. And a lot of these communities are really isolated. Some of them have gone off to islands. Some of them are, like Bikram, who started hot yoga. He was a sexual predator, and the law was after him for years until he left the country, and now he teaches in other countries. So these people are not self-reflecting.
No.
They're not saying, this is my shadow acting out. Mostly, some are, but mostly they're not saying, okay, I can identify that I'm harming someone.
Right.
And that's a violation of my vows. And that's a violation of compassion. I'm harming someone. They're not doing that. They're caught up in their own narcissistic needs. And, I kind of hate to say this, but I actually have come to think that some of them are sociopaths. And
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, they don't have a conscience.
Right.
And so that kind of empathy is not going to get us anywhere with those people.
Well, it would be like, is there any consideration of something that would be like a God complex? Because if you put yourself in that sort of God position, I don't know, I keep thinking about that, this, I think it's a commandment that says, put no God before me. So when we do that, when we elevate a person into a God position, then I would imagine they would get this sort of God complex.
That's right.
Where there's nobody, they don't have a boss.
So in psychology, we call it idealization. Mm-hmm. And as the clergy person or teacher is being idealized more and more and more, they buy their press. They come to identify with being, different and special and immune to the consequences. And that's the ego inflation I was talking about. But, we've seen that in the Catholic Church. We've seen that we've seen it in every denomination. And I would say that fundamentalism in any denomination, Jewish fundamentalism, Islamic, Christian, Hindu fundamentalism, Buddhist fundamentalism, means that the identification with the beliefs becomes primary. I am what I believe. And so if part of the teaching is I am God, then that kind of frees you from the consequences of your actions, right? You can do no wrong. And there's so many people leaving churches now. The New York Times just had a story last week about the unchurched, the tens of thousands of people who are leaving organized religion. And, there are not a lot of good options for those folks because they can just lose faith completely and become kind of lost and disoriented, or they can try to find a different kind of church or synagogue community, or they can turn to these more mystical, unaffiliated communities. And I think that what I would like to say about that is that spirituality is about experience. It's about direct experience, what I call pure awareness, but you could call it spirit or the higher self or being or soul, whatever you call it. It's about the direct experience. It's not about what you believe about it. It's not about who you belong with or who your teacher is. Those things can be meaningful. but it's about your direct inner experience. And so if you're not having that internal experience, I really suggest you move on. Find different practices that will enable you to experience that, whatever we call it, that oneness, that inner silence, vastness, pure awareness. In the inner work of age, I have a lot of practices for people to find in later life. And I call it the shift from role to soul. The shift in identity from what we do to who we really are. And that requires practices to cultivate the internal experience of identifying with soul instead of role.
That's so good. I think everyone needs to read your work, Connie. Serious.
It feels so grounded to me. I love it.
And I'm also so slow to respond to you. You're very soothing. Just listening to you, I'm like, I'm in my rocking chair, like, yes, girl, preach.
Preach. That's funny.
How do you differentiate the good? I'm going to say good from the bad, for lack of better words, but stepping into a new religion or a new spiritual practice. I mean, sometimes it's very easy to see those people are not working in the light. Sometimes, like you said, it can be a slow process. So what are some ways that someone stepping into one of those new places could see, like, maybe there are some red flags?
So this is the practice of discrimination. And it really emerges with shadow awareness. So shadow awareness means tuning in, really checking in with yourself. What am I saying to myself? What am I feeling? And what's going on in my body? What are the sensations in my body? So as you check in the presence of a teacher, what's your intuition telling you? What's your gut telling you? What's your body telling you? And to continue to check in month after month, because the circumstances change. To continue to let yourself be your own guide. And then check in with other people who are there. What are they experiencing? Do they feel safe? Are they having that internal mystical experience? Or have they been there for 40 years and never experienced that? They're mostly there because their need to belong, or their need for the perfect parent. And if that's the case, that's information to you. That's really good information gathering, right?
Definitely.
And then observe. Are you observing healthy, fair treatment of people? Or are you observing women going into the room at night and secrets that no one's talking about? Are you observing the clergy person saying one thing and doing another thing? That was my experience that caused me to leave. Someone recently said to me that the teacher started out asking for tithing and then asking for some like increasing tuition fees for teaching, and then asking for their estate when their parents died. Turn over your estate for me. So how does that leave you feeling?
Not safe.
No.
Yeah, what do you do with that information when you realize that? And I know it's difficult to separate and individuate from these groups. So Charles just said, Check with trusted people outside the group. Good
I was going to
point.
say, very good point. I was just
Good
reading
point.
that same thing.
Yeah, because
Seriously.
there's group think that happens in these communities where everybody's being trained how to think and how to feel. So yes, step outside. There was one woman who the teacher began to touch her inappropriately and say mean things to her when she didn't want to have sex to him. And she spoke to a woman outside the group, and that woman said, "That is abuse." And she had never had that thought. She hadn't permitted herself to have that thought. It took someone else saying it for her to recognize it. And so I write about how do we make the shift from a bystander to a whistleblower? Right? We learned that from the Me Too movement. How do we stand up as a whistleblower and have a voice to try to make it safe for other people in that environment? How do we find that within ourselves to be able to do that?
And also, what about like the repercussions of going through an experience like that?
So people have different responses. When it's really overt abuse, many people suffer from PTSD. They feel anxious, they have nightmares, they relive the experience. They may get depressed or angry. Other people have a different response. Like there are even women who marry their teachers. And we don't know what the power dynamic is like in those marriages, right? But from my point of view, the power differential is so great between a spiritual teacher and a disciple or a devotee that can there even be sexual consent? I mean, consent was a big part of the discussion around the Me Too movement. If your financial well-being is in the hands of someone, can you consent to sex? So in this case, if your spiritual well-being is in the hands of someone, can you consent to sex? So, and there are these women who say, I don't feel abused by this. I don't feel harmed by it. And so there's a range of responses around this, AJ. But there are many people who are deeply traumatized and brokenhearted by it. Brokenhearted in the sense of betrayal and loss of faith.
Yeah, in fact, when I was younger, that's when my faith was questioned. I questioned big time because I remember being a young woman, like 12, 13, and being asked by the person in charge of this religion for that particular area, some really inappropriate questions. Like they made me uncomfortable as a child, right? I was like, why are you asking me about this? And wondering what that had to even do with religion. Natalie, I'm sure you understand. Like it just, there were things that were said and done always, even as I kind of went in and out of questioning this religion, some very inappropriate questions and practices. And I was like, what? I am so confused. Like, what does this have to do with my belief in God or creator? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I hear about it and see it all of the time. I mean, we live in Utah. We have a pretty dominant culture here. And I know there's a lot going on that no one's talking about. Like it's in our faces, but it's justified.
Yeah, the shadow side of Mormonism.
It's very dark.
Yeah, I hear you. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like where Natalie and I, what we have people that we've worked with that are healing from that trauma. And in our own ways, we've healed from it. And it's just crazy how easily accessible people become to those gurus, to those clergy and those leaders.
Well, a
Well,
lot of times it's not a choice because I know for me personally, it's like growing up LDS, it wasn't really this, it was steeped in home life
yeah,
and there's these religions that really put themselves as the only true. And so it's enculturated that questions just simply are unreasonable. Questions are
yeah,
unreasonable.
yes, that's right. And so if you grow up with this, it's like breast milk. I mean, you take it in
Yeah,
from the beginning.
right.
And so for people who live like that, it takes something dramatic for them to start questioning. And then the fear of exile,
Right.
the fear of loss is really intense for people.
The social cost is also very big.
What is?
The social.
Yeah, the social cost is huge. I'm reminded of that movie Unorthodox, of a woman leaving Orthodox Judaism. It's a beautiful movie.
It's on my list, actually.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's really challenging to do that. And it splits families. Yeah, so I get it. And at the same time, how do we learn to act on our own behalf? How do we learn to put ourselves first if we're trained to put others first? How do we learn to speak up about a clergy person or a guru's misbehavior if we're sworn to loyalty to that person? I mean, these are really big, difficult questions.
And also, you think about the community in whole and all of these people who believe in this person. And so for you to come out and say anything, what the repercussions would be for you by the community, not just the clergy.
Yeah. Well, in Jehovah's Witness, it's called, what is it? Not disenfranchisement, it's disfellowship or something. Every closed community has this process of exiling members. I mean, we know about Scientology and how crazy that is for people who leave, right? But even more traditional religions, they all have this, and there's a threat of
excommunication.
Yes.
For Mormons.
Excommunication, but also I was going to say in some groups, the threat of going to hell.
Yes.
A threat that your family will go to hell. Or in the spiritual communities, you'll have bad karma for lifetimes. You'll have bad reincarnations. You know, whatever the language is, it's a really scary step to take. And, you know, I'm just hoping that my book gives guidance to people. It's not about giving advice because I don't believe that they're the same answers for everyone. Mm-hmm. I don't think everyone should separate or should stay. I'm not saying that. I'm just exploring the psychology of these possibilities.
Also, it just gives people an opportunity to broaden their horizons as far as their thought processes go. Mm-hmm. Right? Like maybe they are thinking something is going on or they're feeling a certain way, but opening your book and having these questions come at them for them to dig deeper, they become more clear on the experience that they're having.
That's right. Because maybe I name it and then they can identify it more clearly and they can let the defenses down for just a minute and look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And doesn't that, I mean, it sounds like it allows that the art of discrimination actually doesn't say that you move away from something. It allows for sorting through everything and finding value. And you may actually reorient yourself and actually find your experience to be of value. And it doesn't mean you
Yeah.
leave something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. There's no prescription here. There is a suggestion, not to continue to enable or to allow yourself to be abused.
Right.
But some people stay in their communities and work to reorganize them. There was a scandal at the LA Zen Center a number of years ago. The Roshi, I think he was 100 at the time, and he was found to be having sex with all these women students, and the place just blew up. And after he left, a female Roshi took over, and she reorganized the systems. She reorganized the way men and women related, the communication styles, the hierarchies. In Zen, you meditate facing the wall. She had people turn and meditate facing each other. And so the whole thing has been thriving, whereas it could have just burned to the ground, because she stepped in and was able to do this. So some of the people who are listening or reading may be that person who can reimagine systemic changes and rebuild the community.
Yes, let's get some of that.
Yeah.
It's part of the healing process.
Yeah.
And speaking of healing, how do people recover from this type of religious or spiritual abuse? What are some things that they can do to recover from this?
Well, you asked me that earlier, so I think this is really on your mind. So for me,
I probably reworded it.
Yeah. So for me, the first step is recognizing that there's shadow being acted out, or whatever we call it, harmful, destructive behavior, or whether it's covert or overt abuse. Mm-hmm. The first step is allowing yourself to see that and begin to doubt, begin to allow the doubts, begin to question the authority of this person who's being abusive. And then begin to allow yourself to recognize your projections. What did you attribute to this person? He's all compassionate. He's living the Buddha's compassion. Well, then why is he shaming that student or kicking that student? So begin to just allow this awareness to trickle in. It's very hard to take it all at once, right? We want to just let it trickle in. And then what are you giving away in the projection? You're giving away your own compassion to this other person. So begin to take that back. And what would it mean for you to carry that much compassion for humanity? And then begin to cultivate your independent thinking. What did you give away in terms of certainty? Maybe you were looking for certainty in a belief system. And for that reason, you couldn't doubt. You couldn't feel your doubts. So how would you bring back your independent thinking? And how would you begin to bring back your authentic feelings? When I was in this meditation group, people used to ask me why I looked happy all the time. And I realized that there was a persona in the group that people didn't want to look sad or angry because that wouldn't bode well for getting more people to meditate. And so a certain authentic feelings were buried in the shadow. And this persona, this presentation was cultivated. And this was unconscious. I mean, thousands of people were doing this unconsciously and burying these feelings in the shadow. So what authentic feelings have you lost that you could begin to let out of the closet? And what about your bodily awareness? What have you stuffed into your body sexual feelings, other sensations that were forbidden and that have information for you, because our bodies have intelligence for us. Our gut responses have meaning. But if we shut them down, we can't hear that meaning. And our agency, right? Our capacity to act in our own behalf. Where did it go? Our capacity to protect ourselves and protect others. Where did that go, and how can we begin to recover it? So all of this is in the second half of the book that I call spiritual shadow work.
Ooh.
Yeah. How do we identify what's in the spiritual shadow and begin to reclaim it for ourselves?
You did give a different answer, by the way, or
Okay.
I heard it differently.
Okay. Okay.
If I did ask the same question, and I apologize for that.
Oh, no.
But what is spiritual shadow work? How, like we talked about this earlier, because I was asking if it was psychological or if it was spiritual, but now you're talking specifically about spiritual shadow work. So what is that?
Let's not do either or. Because for me, as I said, they work together.
You said they were the same.
Well, they're not the same, but they work together. So, for example, I mentioned we do a contemplative practice, a spiritual practice, to meet the shadow material inside of us or inside of our teachers. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming, right? It can be too much. So in the inner work of age, that's how I taught it. In order to face our fears of aging and death, we need a spiritual practice for centering. We need to know how to use our breath to silence our minds and calm our nervous systems. Is that psychological or spiritual? I mean, you know. So for me, they're very intertwined. Mm-hmm. And spiritual shadow work is about applying my method in the spiritual arena or the religious arena, where we can really begin to uncover what we gained and what we lost with this teacher and community, and what we want to do about it next. What is our next step? How do we recover if we were traumatized? What do we need? What do we need to feel our feelings, to connect with our bodies again, to be authentic, right? What do we need for that process of reclaiming lost parts of the self? Because that's part of what happens.
Yeah.
It's so
definitely what happens.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Natalie?
Well, it reminds me of, there's a few things that went through my mind, but one that's like you're continuing to bring up, you need a centering practice. You need a practice that helps you get centered on a regular, consistent basis. It's like preparing for battle. Yeah. So I often look at shadow work as something that it's not to be taken lightly, because it is, it can lead you into those, you have to face fears, you have to face possible abuse or trauma, and that isn't something that should be done. So I was thinking, as you were talking about this practice, it's like before you go to war or battle, you have to prepare so that you're ready and steady in a way.
Yeah, for me, the war analogy, the shadow isn't the enemy, and our intention is not to kill it. We can't actually. Our intent, right? The shadow is infinitely deep, and we're never going to become conscious of all of it. And there's family shadow and group shadow. Like LDS has its own shadow, and national shadow. So Jung called that a collective shadow. So what we've been focusing on is primarily the personal shadow, because that's what we have the capacity to really work with. So for me, the war metaphor isn't quite.
Did we freeze?
It's the wrong energy. It's not a right and wrong. We all grow up in this way because we can't live out every possibility. We have to repress some material. We can't actually live out everything. And so it's natural to form a shadow and to continue to repress things through our lives. You can't be in a marriage and not be repressing material. I mean, it's just not possible. You can't express every single solitary feeling all day long. So it's not about enemy or war. It's really about the gold in the dark side, finding the gold in the parts of us that are outside of the light of awareness. And for me, each book has been an extension into another arena of life. So Romancing the Shadow was primarily about relationships, intimate relationships and friendships. And The Inner Work of Age was primarily about the shadows that come up in the aging process. And Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path is about how the shadow arises in our religious and spiritual lives and how to really come to terms with it, make peace with it, heal ourselves, and find ways to live our spiritual lives that are without harm to ourselves or others. And for people who want to read the last book, I have an invitation that I want to make because I think that some people are going to be leaving. So if you're interested, I'm organizing free online leaderless groups to read the book together, like a book study, and do the practices together and feel support to do spiritual shadow work. Mm-hmm. And if that's interesting to you, you can email me, Connie Zweig at gmail.com. And I need two things. I need you to put spiritual shadow work in the subject line and give me your time zone, because the groups are organized by where you live. And then I'll connect you with other people in your time zone, and you can read and explore and support each other as you go through this process.
What's that email address one more time for those who are grabbing the pen?
It's Connie Zweig, Zweig, at gmail.com. And I'm going to be honest, please don't send me your story. I get hundreds of emails every day. So don't send a long email. Just let me know that you're interested in a group and your time zone, and I'll be happy to do this.
That is such a beautiful offering. Thank you. I have a question really quick, because this is a conversation Natalie and I will have. It's been brought up on the show a couple of times. What is your take on doing this type of work? Like, how do I word this? Like, the best analogy that I always share is like opening the closet and pulling out a box and opening the box and doing that. Do you do that? Do you go in and just constantly do this work, or as per needed, per experience?
Well, I think that's different for different people. People
just as long as you're doing it.
People have different pacing around their healing and recovery, right? Some people really want to dive in and do a lot of work, and then they take a break. Mm-hmm. Some people want to do a little at a time over a long period.
There's no right or wrong way.
So often when I do a lot of workshops on Zoom. If you're interested in workshops, conniezweig.com. All the links are there. And so I'm meeting people, and, I just get such a kick out of it in the workshop when they find a shadow character. And they begin to see their whole life in a different light because they see how this was controlling their behavior and how they can begin to make different choices.
Oh, I love that stuff.
Yeah. And so some people are doing that right in the workshop, and some people do it when they get home later. And some people don't do it at all, and they wait another year, and then the moment is right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very different for individuals.
That's nice to know. It doesn't have to be on a particular timeline.
There's no rush.
Well, you just see people who are like, I've got to do the work. I've got to do the work. And they're constantly opening these boxes. And I'm like, whoa, calm down.
Well, my
each their own, right?
My guess is that they're suffering.
Probably.
They're motivated. The pain is motivating them to heal. Mm-hmm. And that's the gift of our suffering.
Right. Wow. My mind, like a lot of this I already knew, but just different viewpoints and validation. And like, I feel like I'm at a loss for words. Obviously, I'm struggling with words tonight. My mind blown, Connie. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both. I'm
so grateful.
I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you, Charles, for posting in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
We've had several people posting in chat tonight. Everyone has been, and Charles is even reposting your Gmail. Thank you, Charles. He's awesome. Yeah. So to those of you who need the website, once again, it's Connie Zweig, which is ConnieZweig.com. You can see all of her work there. You can also purchase her books at
anywhere you buy books. You can go on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com or Books A Million. They're all available.
You even have some on Audible.
They're on Audible.
Because I actually downloaded one off of my list before I even knew you were going to be a guest.
Oh, that's great.
I know. I went to go look you up and I'm like, oh, cool. She's already on here.
That's great.
So thanks for that. It has been a pleasure. Once again, thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, thank you for being here and participating tonight. You're all so beautiful. And Bill produced us tonight. So big shout out to him. Bill in New York.
Bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Much love.
We'll see you guys all next week. Until then, be good to yourself and be good to each other. Good night.
Good night. Have a good one.
Much.